All right, well, everyone, welcome to another evening with MathKind. Tonight's topic is connecting culture with math instruction, ensuring equitable engagement for our students. In this session, we're going to focus on elements of classroom culture and instruction that make math more equitable and engaging for all students. Tonight's keynote speaker is Dr. Shelley M. Jones, who is a professor of mathematics education at Central Connecticut State University and president of the Benjamin Banneker Association. She is a 28-year veteran educator, having made her career in K-12 education as a teacher, professional development provider, and mathematics administrator. She is also a board member of several educational organizations. Dr. Jones is the author of Women Who Count: Honoring African-American Women Mathematicians, and co-author of Engaging in Culturally Relevant Math Tasks, Fostering Hope in the Elementary Classroom. Her accomplishments are recognized on the Mathematically Gifted and Black website. And I give you Dr. Shelley Jones.
Well, thank you so much for those kind words and talking a little bit about, my history. But I think that in all that we do, what we've done in the past sort of positions us for what we want to do and what we continue to do. And so I've been in this work of culturally relevant, learning about culturally relevant pedagogy for I don't know, since about 2013. I feel like even as a teacher, though, I was thinking about it, even though I didn't know it was called something, because I actually taught in the same town where I grew up. And so I really had an investment in, helping students to see, the possibilities with math, and that it wasn't just something that, you just did on a piece of paper and got an answer, but it was actually part of your life. So that's what we'll talk a little bit about tonight. And as we talk about global math stories, which I absolutely love, I'll begin by saying that it's important for teachers and students alike to learn about the broader world. I mean, we really are in a global world. Kids see things on TV all the time. We were talking to different people on how they are looking towards the future. And one teacher said during the pandemic, her students told her, well, Miss, you should do a TikTok, because, then people will watch it and will, be interested, I guess. And, just over a span of a couple of weeks, she had like 1 million followers. So my point is that her followers were from all over. And the work that MathKind is doing with places like Nepal, it shows that we really do need to learn. And so when we do these types of professional development, types of partnerships, MathKind has always but MathKind has always had at the forefront respecting cultures and even honoring cultures. And we really do have to, when we're talking about these things, we really do have to help teachers to learn as much as possible about the people, about the cultures, because it's all important. Yes, we're going to get to the math. Learning is bi-directional, right? And so in doing this type of work, we're looking at how, teachers learn from teachers, teachers learn from students, students learn from teachers, we community members learn from us, and we learn from them. And so I think that that's really important for us to think about as we're doing this type of work. So I'm going to share my screen. And okay, so the first couple of slides, just my title. Connecting culture with math instruction. And it's something that I've been working on for a while. And I tell you, I'm still learning. And I really learn from everyone, because as I talk to people, when my mom talks to me about her crocheting or her knitting, it's always amazing that there's so much math involved. And so we talk about that. And she begins to see that she is a math person. And that's what we have to do with students as well. There's your global math stories. I love that we have some all over, but I noticed lately that we have more and more in North America, which is fine. I'm glad that you all are doing that, that we are doing that, and we can continue to add to these stories. So, before I get into this, let me go back just for a second, because just seeing this map and talking about North America, I wanted to make sure I do a land acknowledgement, which is something that I've been doing lately. I don't always remember to do it, but I wanted to start with a land acknowledgement, especially because we're talking about this work that that looks at Indigenous people. Lots of times when we do these stories, a lot of times it includes information about Indigenous people, and we want to make sure that we always honor that. So I live and work on the ancestral lands of the Quinnipiac, the Tunxis, the Pagussets, and the Paquonics Native people. I honor their ancestors, and I realize that I'm privileged to live on this land. So I wanted to do that. And also, let's see if I can put in the chat. I'll put it in at another time, because I don't think I could do both things. But I actually have the website for the land acknowledgements, and I continue to try to read that and add to my knowledge every time. So I'll put that in the chat at some point. So now, okay, so I know we just started, but what I would like to do is I want you to think of something around you that includes or makes you think about math. So as educators, we're believing that learning is bidirectional, right? So we want to learn as much as possible from our students, from our parents and the community. So we want to bring that information into the classroom to enrich our learning, to enrich students and what they learn. So even though I'm asking this question of you, I want you to also be thinking about, how would you ask your students this same type of question? And then also, how can we glean this type of information from parents and community? So literally, I want you to take like 30 seconds to kind of look around your room, maybe get something, find something, maybe even bring it to the camera if it's close by. It could even be a photo in your phone. And as much as possible, I would like to share a few things. Let's see. I think I'm gonna get this. And let's just share for a few minutes. So right in our surroundings, there's math, right? So let's see. Okay, Andrea. What are you holding up?
A double-decker
Is it a bus? Is it a school bus?
Yeah, it's a double-decker bus.
Oh, a double-decker bus. What kind of math do you see in that, Andrea?
So I like to use this with students to talk about addition.
Okay.
And that even if you decompose a number and compose it maybe on the bottom, that the total stays the same.
Okay.
And so with Harry Potter, this is also really helpful. I mean, the kids like Harry Potter.
Because when they see it, I didn't know what it was, but when they see it, they probably know what it is.
Yeah, they know exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Sarah, I saw you holding something up.
Yep, I have little tiny quarter circle hand sewn quilt squares. They'll be an inch finished, I think, that I just keep at my desk. And if I have a few minutes, I play with them. And sewing, and like you said, sewing and quilting and knitting and all that fibery stuff has an incredible amount of math in it.
I love thinking about quilting in either like tessellations or transformations. I
Mhm.
love that symmetry. And so there's lots of math involved there. Anybody else? Let's see. I can't see everybody. Let's see. Let's get maybe one or two more. Kaylee, I see a little octopus. Is that?
Yes, I grabbed my Moody Octopus, which
Uh-huh.
all the kids that I know right now love these animals, and it's happy on one side and you turn it inside out and it's angry on the other side.
I love it.
And so I was thinking that, you know, it has 8 legs and there's a lot of symmetry involved. And also it connects to the idea that we've been talking about of same but different.
Okay.
And so what's the same, what's different? I'm thinking about that too.
I love that. Anybody else? One more or we're good? And you could also write in the chat. In fact, let me look at the
Chad's
chat.
got a hexagon.
Who's got a hexagon? Let's see.
So I fidget with these sort of bucky balls, these
Oh,
little
okay.
high power. But what is so interesting is if you take one round thing and then start surrounding it with equal sized, it becomes a perfect hexagon. And I'm trying to find a proof of that.
Okay.
Something Jenny and I will probably spend the evening working on.
All right. Have fun.
Yeah.
All right. So we see a lot of math right around us. I got my daughter's recorder. Like my daughter's 21. I don't know why I still have this. But anyway, math and music are connected so much. And you can talk about fractions. You could even actually talk about transformations, how you might have a music that's reflected, like it goes this way and then it goes backwards. I've seen it before. I don't know that much about music, but you could actually have a reflection in the music. Candles, the rate at which different candles burn. Thank you, Heather. Okay, so we are going to move on. I don't want to leave anyone out though, if somebody had anything. All right. Suhaila, hi. Okay, let's see. Okay, so this one, we're actually going to use a Jamboard. And I know we're starting off sort of at the front end, asking you a lot of questions. But a lot of what we're going to talk about today has to do with your surroundings, your home life, and bringing that into the school and making connections to people's cultures and things that they're familiar with. And we want our classrooms to be equitable. We want equitable engagement. That's a big deal. We want all students to be engaged. So what I would love you to do, I have a Jamboard, and if we can take a few minutes, let's see.
I'll repost that in the chat for you
Okay,
right
in
now,
the
so
chat.
everyone can have it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
And
think they can see it. Yep, it's in the chat, everyone.
all right, so what comes to mind when you think about equitable engagement? Now, let me give you a little more of a prompt. So what does this classroom look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? And you might make some connection to things that you've been doing over the last couple of days with the global math stories, or just things that you already do in your classroom, or just thoughts you have. So if you go to that Jamboard, and I think I'm going to stop sharing so I can share the Jamboard. So if everybody is going, let's see. All right, here's the Jamboard. Oh, I have to put it back on question 1. Okay. All right, so if you look at question 1, it says, what comes to mind when you think about equitable engagement? And you can go ahead and start doing some Post-it notes and put that on there. All right, very nice. All right, I'll go ahead and share that just very briefly. Everybody can take a few minutes to kind of just read on your own. I mean, this is so rich. I mean, students having voice. How do we make that happen? Students having voice. Content relatable to students' lives. Especially when we're using, you know, a curriculum that's already made up. It's really difficult to make those connections directly from that curriculum. But it doesn't mean we can't use that curriculum as a foundation for what we're teaching, but bringing in other information. We're going to hear lots of discourse. That means the room might be loud. Students can make connections between math and their own lives. It's relatable to their lives. Students' needs. Well, I don't know what happened. Okay, I'm going to come back to you all. If someone
I think it got deleted somehow or cleared.
yeah, I think so.
Control Z. Yeah, we might Control Z it. Command Z.
Yeah, I didn't touch it, but that's okay. We'll go back to it. If someone thinks they might have done that, then they might Control Z it or whatever to get it back. But man, that was some good stuff. I don't want to lose that. All right, so I need to open my, share my screen again. Okay.
Yeah, I just tried to restore an earlier version of it from like the minute before. So hopefully it still got everyone's things.
Oh, and if it's not blank and there's something up there, that's better than being blank, right?
All right, it's not blank. There's a bunch of sticky notes on it. I'll also mention that this is recorded, and so it is. We will know what it said.
Okay, thank you so much. So I just wanted to bring you back, if you're not familiar with these principles of effective teaching, ensuring equitable engagement is one of those principles. And so I wanted to just say that with effective teachers create learning environments that are active, collaborative, and equitable, and often just darn fun. And some of what I saw you put on those Post-it notes kind of get at that. Because if you have an environment that's active, most likely it's not going to be quiet because students are talking. Most likely if it's active and students are engaged, it's going to be fun. It's going to be engaging. And so if you are engaging all students, then it's more equitable. If every student can find a place to get into that activity, then it's more equitable. Teachers motivate students to participate actively in their own learning. So they feel like it's relatable. It's not a chore, right? It's not a chore. Students can contribute to their peers' learning. So there's a lot going on in an equitable classroom where everyone is engaged. Math is adapted to students' content and made relevant and applicable to their life, to their real life. And so we want to use the global math stories, and in some cases, community math stories, right, Chad? We want to use those as well. Right down the street from your house, students can make stories, and we can mathematize that. And so that's a little bit about what we want to do later today. And so when we do this type of work, we want to make sure we have mirrors and windows. And math problems can help children see a reflection of some part of them, and that's a mirror. And what happens when we use textbooks and we use curriculum? Many times students don't see themselves reflected. They don't see themselves in the math problem. They do the math problem because it's what they need to do, but they don't see themselves. We also do need windows. I was working with a teacher, and she wanted to do a problem where she showed students. Yeah, she was working with her students, and she wanted to do a problem about camping. But then what she found out was that many of her students had never gone camping. Now, it's okay. She can still do camping, but she would need to provide some background knowledge about, well, who goes camping? What do you do when you go camping? And better yet, where's the math that's involved when you go camping? Instead, many of her students say, well, they don't really go on vacation, but they go to family reunions every year, and that's their vacation. They go visit grandma every year, and that's their vacation. It could be in the same state, or it could be out of state. So the idea was that just because the kids haven't gone camping doesn't mean that you still can't teach it, but they'll need background. But at the same time, you can ask them, well, what do you do? And then you can use that information to create your math problem. So I'm going to give you guys some time to think about something that is important to your family, to you and your family. Like these students, they said, well, we don't really go camping, but visiting my grandparents or going to a family reunion, that's actually important to us. And it's like a vacation, because we get to go and we get to stay at grandma's house or in a hotel if that's where we stay. So before we ask the question of what's something around you that kind of shows mathematics. So I'm going to ask you to look for or think of a different thing. What's something around you? And again, it can be something in your phone. It could be a photo, but what's something around you that's important to you and your family? What is something that's important to you and your family? Take like 30 seconds or so. All right, now let's see. People are sharing in the chat. So time, hiking, health, cooking and eating together, horses, your grandmother's chili recipe, pets, the Bible, cooking and eating for sure. I mean, cooking's always one of those things, especially cooking and eating with your families. Horses, I love that. Kids love horses, so they would love to learn more about horses. Just being healthy, doing activities in your classroom that talk about, health and how to be healthy. because there's lots of math involved in that. So one of the things I want you to think about is, earlier I asked about, what's something around you that you can see math in, something right in your surroundings that you can see math. And then when you ask a different question, what's something around you that's important to you? How are the things that you said before similar to or different to what you're saying now? Because remember, what we want is for kids to kind of begin to connect those two. So would anyone like to respond to that, either coming off mute or in the chat, sort of looking at what you said before and saying, how is what I said now similar to or different? Diana, I see your hand.
Hello. I realized that in the first activity, we tried to look for an object around us. But in the second part, we try to look for an experience or something that happened, but not specific like an object. I think that was different.
You think it was different? I didn't hear everything you said, but let's see. Tell me again how you said it was different.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
I'm so sorry. That's why I don't have camera. I'm so sorry. I am saying that the first activity, we look for objects, specific objects around us. But in the second activity, we look for experiences because it was more related to people.
Okay. Oops.
I think that was the difference.
Okay. And so I think we can learn something from that as well, because although we do want students to see things around them in their homes, in their communities. I had students take pictures one time. I had them take photos, and I see two more people with their hand raised. So I had them take photos, and then they would come back to say, well, what was this photo about and how did it show math? And then you had a student that brought in a picture of his grandfather's garden. And he was so happy to talk about it and how he would help his grandfather pick the weeds out and how beautiful the garden was kept. And we talked about where was the math. And he said the rows of vegetables, and he could use multiplication for that. So I did see Sarah's hand raised, and there were two other people with their hand raised.
I wanted to sort of extend off of what Diana said. I think in that first question, when we were talking about objects, part of what happened for me, simply because of where I am in the house, I found something that is sort of mine, that is an individual thing. And when you ask about our families and that more experience-based idea, I like the way Diana described that. It takes me to a broader circle. And part of what it makes me think about is, had I been in a different part of the house, I would have seen my granddaughter's building blocks, or I would have seen fairly geometric art on the walls, or other kinds of things that might have been more of a connection across the two. It's everywhere. And when you ask and how you contextualize the question, this is making me think really, really matters.
I really do. I think it does. And part of what, and we want both of those experiences. We want both. We want them to see objects, and we want them to see things in their homes and in their communities that connect to math. But we also want those experiences. We want them to feel, because like I said, when I can't think of his name right now, but when this student came in and he talked about his grandfather, you could feel the love there. Because when you have those relationships with the family, then they're based on relationships and love. And, you want to pull in those experiences as well to the math classroom. And we can do that. I did see some other hands, but I didn't see names. So certainly just unmute, or if you want to write in the chat, if you wanted to continue with this conversation. Similarities and differences, and I definitely do agree. Now, I talked about the posing the problems that matter. I think I talked about this one a little bit already. The fact that in this particular case, the teacher wanted to connect to students better. I believe she was a middle school teacher, so math would be what she taught all the time. And so she just asked students, what are some things that you care about? What are some things or issues that bother you? You know, they're issues for you. And for students, they could always come up with what they don't think is fair. They could always come up with things that they really like to do or things that they love. And so students listed lots of things, lots of issues, and the teacher chose the issue of the overcrowding. And students were highly engaged. There was one student, Angel, who, you know, she said she didn't dislike math, but math just wasn't her thing. But she did know with the overcrowding, she was one of the ones that talked about this issue. She said the girls' bathroom was always too crowded. You couldn't go to the bathroom. And so they were able to measure the hallways. They were able to measure the bathroom floor. They were able to go downstairs to the first floor. And on the first floor, it was a different school. The two schools shared a building. And they did the same thing with measuring the floors downstairs, but then they used the student population to find, you know, students per square foot. And in fact, they found that they were correct. Their school was overcrowded, and they actually wrote something to the Board of Ed, and they were able to sort of have a stay on maybe for a year or two of not having more new students come into their school. And they were able to halt that at least for a year or two. And so they got to see this was basically a social justice math problem that they did. And social justice, because it was an issue. And, you know, social justice doesn't always have to be something that happens on the outside, like something you see on TV or something. It can be an issue right in the school. And even when we're talking about these global math stories, certainly there's social justice issues, because just, you know, when we learn about the people in the stories, lots of times there can be social justice issues. I remember the social justice issue for the Ecuador story. I don't remember the name of it, but we talked about how on Kiosk Street, you know, they closed the street down in the evening times, and it basically became a big restaurant. And so all the restaurant owners would bring out, you know, their food, and people would come, and a lot of the tourists would come and they would eat. And the social justice question was, do you think a family that lives in that area, in that community, can afford to even go to the restaurants that are there, that the tourists frequent? And so that was a social justice question. And so we can bring in global math stories, bring in the social justice questions, but then have students make connections to their own lives here, if you're in the States or wherever you are. And so there's lots of connections between what's happening with people in Ecuador and what's happening with people here. And so why not have students learn about those issues and make connections to people that they've never even met before? And so those are some things that we can do. Student voices. And some of you wrote student voices in your equitable engagement classroom. Student voices are important. And I bring up Gloria Latson-Billings because she coined the term years ago in the 90s culturally relevant pedagogy. And part of what Gloria talked about was empowering students. She, when she wrote the book, The Dream Keepers, really what she was doing was research, and she was trying to find out what makes a good teacher. And so what did she do? She asked people. She asked parents, teachers, administrators, the students, who are good teachers? And from that information, and she also observed teachers, from that information, what she found was that these teachers empowered students, not just academically, but socially, economically, and even politically. And what she meant by politically was she got students to think critically about things that are happening to them, things that are happening around the world. In the Shepherd's Leap, we talked about, Naomi talked about how the volcano eruption in September, how, you know, basically people had to stay in place for a while. Sarah, I saw you on the video, and you talked about how, you know, they did not have cases of COVID during basically September to December because people stayed in place. It wasn't until they started allowing people to come in again that they began to have cases. And so, you know, when you think about what's going on in the world, or when you think about, you know, these different contexts, you can kind of make it broader by saying, what else is going on? What's happening in the world? She used cultural artifacts. She used things that students knew, things from their homes, like you just got from your home. And then there were 3 tenets that she said you needed: academic achievement, cultural competence, and critical consciousness. And you know what? This even goes for elementary students. We want students to learn about themselves, cultural competence. We want teachers to learn about their students, cultural competence, but we also want them to know what's fair and what's not fair. How do you decide that? You know, depending on the grade level, how are schools funded? Why shouldn't kids know about that? Obviously, grade appropriate. So we can bring in lots of information. In Connecticut, we're doing some math circles. And one of the math circles is on social justice. And the teachers are creating amazing activities, and the activities are, I don't know if it's called OER. I don't know if they're not, you don't have to pay for them. And so I will make sure that I send someone a link to that, so that you all can get that link. They have lessons on food deserts. They had lessons on Black Lives Matter, and they had murals, and they would use the murals to basically do math. And in this case, it was a Black Lives Matter that was painted in a circular area. So that was really interesting. And they use Google Maps to look down at the Black Lives Matter mural. It was beautiful. And you can see the circle, and you can actually get measurements using the Google Maps. And so that's what they did. And so when we talk about asking students about their, you know, what do they think is important? What's connected to math? It helps with their math identities, because if we can help them see that there's math all around them, and that they do math, and their parents do math, and their community does math, we can help with their math identity. It starts with their beliefs about whether they're doers of math. If they don't believe they are, then they don't have a good math identity. And so we want to change that. We want to make sure that they know that they can use math in powerful ways in their own life. that it's not just about answering something out of a textbook, but they can learn about others using global math stories. They can connect it to their own lives. I want to have time for you all to do a little talking about the global math stories. Now, I know that you all, most of you, I think all of you know about the shepherd's leap and how, you know, the shepherds use these lenses to, you know, to be able to, you know, move from somewhere steep to where the sheep are. If a sheep got lost or just, you know, to movement to go down where the sheep are. And so we learned about the lenses and we learned about their different sizes. And Naomi gave you lots of ideas about how you might use these. So I want to actually break into groups and actually think about something very specific. Like if you're a classroom teacher, how might you use this with your students? How is it possible to make this a mirror? Like use it in such a way where students might see themselves. And if it's a stretch, then maybe have it be a window, but what is it that you would want students to learn about? Because obviously there was a whole PowerPoint presentation, a lot of information. What might you take from that PowerPoint for your students? Would you focus on the angles that are made? Like when you look at this angle that this shepherd, I don't know if they're all called shepherds, but I get it because they're okay. So you all know they're doing this more to keep the tradition alive so that people know what they did, not that they're still doing this. And tourists can get involved, which is nice. They can learn about this tradition. So the tradition continues to be told for generation to generation. Now, the social justice question for this global math story was, you know, whose job is it to keep this tradition going? Like maybe they're going to forget it one day. So whose job should it be to keep this tradition going? So I would love for you to go into groups of 2 or 3, just so that maybe 10 minutes, so that you can really drill down, and then we can come back and talk about that. You can drill down and really pick one thing. And if you need to go back to the global math story, go ahead and do that. Any questions though, before we go into these groups? Let's see, there's 13 of us. I think
Dr. Jones, would you like me to help with setting those up?
I would love that. I'm thinking groups of 3, maybe
Okay.
would be good.
So then we need 4 groups roughly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And can we just assign automatically and it doesn't matter?
I think so. Let's just sign randomly and see what we get.
All right, doing it now.
All right. We'll come back in 10 minutes.
The story is in the chat now. You can
thank you so much. The story is in the chat. Now I'm going to stop sharing because I don't see that I'm in a group.
Okay. I just opened all the rooms.
Okay. I'll see you all back in 10 minutes.
Okay. Is everyone getting their room? Okay.
Oh no. All right. Mine went away. I want to go to a group for a little while, but maybe I'll just go because I think I'm a host, so I can go in any room, right?
You should be able to pop in and out of any room.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm a pop in. Okay. And Kimberly and Diana, are you there? Are you able to go into a room?
Oh, Diane. Okay. No, they're gone. Good. Everybody's in the room. Good. We did it. We did it. All right. I think I'm going to pop into room 3. That one's a little light. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to pop into one of the rooms. So let me see.
Actually, you're an educator. Can you pop into room 3? Because there's not a math kind person. I mean, other than, well, Sue Haley's in there, but she's development. So maybe.
No, I'll join group 3.
You do group 3 then. Okay.
All right.
Hey, Cam.
Kim, can you hear me?
Okay, you're muted, Dr. Jones.
We had some really good conversations in our breakout room, and we probably wouldn't have time for everyone to report out, but I sure wouldn't mind hearing from a few breakout rooms if someone would like to share anything. We talked mostly about the Shepherd's Leap. We didn't get to the other one. So we mostly stayed on the Shepherd's Leap. But would anyone like to share anything from their breakout room?
Okay, so Diana or Carrie, you guys share because I thought we had a lot of interesting things.
Okay.
Yeah, so but I don't want to tell them. They can.
Now, was it something that connects to, are you a classroom teacher?
I
Carrie
am,
is.
yes.
Oh, Carrie, so tell us how would you connect this or use this with your students, whether it be a mirror or window or just in general, how would you connect it?
Well, it would definitely be a window because my students are in a low SES place where most of the time their family vacations are just to Myrtle Beach and back because we're here in North Carolina.
Okay.
And so they just love to always go there, or they go to Charlotte and see stuff in there.
Okay.
But even then, some families still can't go nowhere. Some don't even leave Anson County. So this would definitely be a good opportunity to show them something different that they've never seen before. And I think they could use it a little bit as a mirror because some of them they like to parkour, and you can kind of tie it in with parkour in just a little bit, just it would have to be without the stick though, of course.
Oh, all right. Tell me about that. You said
Parkour? You never heard of parkour before?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, well, that's where these kids, they like to go and they like to jump from certain things. So like they may jump from like roof to roof. There's some people that go all out and they'll jump down from the roof and get down to the ground floor from a tall building, and they have them on YouTube. But these kids, they love to watch people do things like that because it's something that it's out of this world. Like I wouldn't do it ever.
Well, oh my goodness.
There you go. They jump, and they also use walls or concrete walls. There's a bunch of different places. Yes, there you go.
See, that's so interesting to me, and that's why the kids are interested in it. It just looks very cool. I wouldn't do it either.
Yes.
But it's, you know what? The Lanzas, those kids could probably use some Lanzas to make sure that they are safely landing. But yeah, I think that could be a little bit of a mirror. Because we could ask any of the students, have you ever done that? Maybe how tall do you think that building is?
Right.
The shepherds were 30 feet up, so they might be able to relate to some of that.
Yeah. And with me being fourth grade, I was telling them about how I have meter sticks.
Uh-huh.
Like we could even measure in meters how far something like that is, or Chad had mentioned about, hey, how far you think the top of our school building? Would they jump down from our school building?
Exactly. See, I mean, that's exciting. I really love that connection. All right,
And
thank
then-
you for sharing, Carrie.
I
Can
want to
also
add
say- Yeah, go ahead.
that my little brother, he is a parkour addict. So everywhere we go, like he's all of 9 years old, and everywhere we go, he's literally trying to parkour in every single public location. And so now I'm curious to ask him next time I'm out, what is it about like the concrete outside that makes him feel like he can parkour off of it? Like, is it a certain height? Does it look like, how big does the object have to be to feel like he feels comfortable jumping and back flipping off of something? But I swear, we can't go to a Target. We can't be near a slab of concrete without him, disappearing and parkouring all over the place. So
Wow.
I definitely
I'm learning something totally new. So I thank you so much, Chad, for telling me that Carrie had something good to talk about, because that was great, Carrie. I'm telling you, that was great.
Well, the thing she also said, I think is a good caution, is that we don't want all of our students to go try to do the shepherd's leap at home when they get home.
That's true.
After
That's
class.
true.
So with a meter stick.
Is professional and goes all out. You can look him up. Okay. Dominic D. Tomaso. All right. Thank you. Would anyone else like to share out? Maybe we'll have one more. Tomaso. Thank you.
I want to add something. In our group, we talk about that it's important to take into account that it can be interdisciplinary with other subjects. We can include scientific teachers and try to do something including other subjects, because there in that practice, we can see there are forces working there, and we can relate that to angles and work in other ways, like including different views.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, Naomi did a good job talking about the different, force and energy. And so there's so much there. It's so rich that you can really veer off in a lot of different ways. We talked about using proportions with the height of the shepherd and the height of the stick. If it's proportional, if you're 5'2" and your stick is 12 feet, how tall will the stick need to be for someone who's 6 feet tall, if it's proportional? So there's lots of things that we can do with that.
Shelley, can I pause for a second? The thing you just said is such an important thing. Is, remember, we make up numbers sometimes as teachers to make it accessible. So what Shelley did was just qualified it. I don't know if it's proportional, but if it is, this would be an interesting question to ask. And I think that's so important. You have the freedom to do that. And especially when you use these qualifiers, like you just said. Thank you for doing that.
Okay, so I don't know. Let me go to my PowerPoint just because I want to make sure I'm not missing something. And I don't know if you had more than an hour or an hour and a half. So let me just go, and I won't keep you very long, but I just want to make sure I'm not missing something that I wanted to share before I let you go. So we had a nice conversation about how this story can serve as a mirror in a window. I think this slide was really just to talk about, okay, Gloria Latz-Milling says that these are the 3 tenets of culturally relevant pedagogy. Where do you see any of this in this global math story? So as you look at the Shepherd's Leap, we want to think about, is the math there? Is it going to be academically, mathematically rigorous? Where's the culture? Maybe we'll talk about the shepherds. Maybe we'll talk about the history and the tradition of where this came from. Maybe we'll talk about the canary bird, right? So there's all of these different things that we can talk about. And then even the critical awareness when we were talking about, first of all, being safe. you know, because it's not like these, who knows, sometimes maybe they got hurt, right? And then when Naomi was talking about the volcano erupting, you know, what was going on during the pandemic? How were people living? How do people even live now? Because everything is mostly based on tourism. So what happened during those 2 years? So there's lots of things that we can talk about when we talk about culturally relevant pedagogy. And last but not least, we wanted to talk about, you know, the bridge from the global math story to the equitable engagement. And I think that kind of brings us full circle to, we have these global math stories. How can we get kids engaged in the math through the story, but equitable engagement? And so we talked about that. So I'm going to stop sharing. I just wanted to make sure I got through everything, and I did. And if you do tweet, at Shelly M. Jones 1, or MathKind is at MathKind Global. So I'm going to stop sharing and see if anybody has questions, comments, or if Chad or anybody wanted to reiterate anything or have closing remarks.
I will add in that if you are trying to earn your digital badge for your participation in this, if you go into the course and participate on chapter, which one is it? 11, it has all of the requirements in English for what you need to do, which is essentially attend 3 sessions or watch the recording. And I think I've seen you all in all 3. Respond to the survey. We'll add the link there shortly, and also share it in an announcement soon. Share your ideas from yesterday, and then share your reflection about this connection between GMS and equitable engagement. That's all that it takes. And so all of that information is there, and then you can actually do all of that as well in chapter 12. And if you have any issues with that, please send us a message and we'll support on your way through.
I really appreciate all of your time tonight. I mean, anytime we talk about the evening, for me, 6:30, 7:30, 8 o'clock, it starts getting late. So I appreciate you taking the time to be here. And hopefully you'll be using some global math stories and creating some of your own.
We'd love that for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm all set.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Jones, for being here with us tonight. Round of applause. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Everyone, have a good night.